Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our first webinar on recycling solutions for on-farm plastics. We have a series of 3 webinars that we'll be running over the next 3 weeks, and this is the first one looking at on-farm plastics for the New South Wales cut flower industry. But we are very keen to have a couple of key speakers with us, David Leach from Agsafe and also Greg Carrick from Garden City Plastics. So we're just going to do a bit of an introduction and welcome to country. So first of all, acknowledgement of country. First of all, I'd just like to acknowledge the country that we're all calling in from. And also to pay our respects to elders past and present and acknowledge emerging leaders. I'm on Wurundjeri country in Victoria. A bit of background to what we'll be talking about and a few housekeeping issues. We'll make sure that people can use the chat function to ask their questions. We've got a session at the end which will be focused on Q&A, and Ali Buchanan, my colleague, will be able to answer those questions for you and make sure that we cover all of the questions that come through. We've also going to ensure that we've got 2 speakers. So David, as I mentioned, will be talking about Agsafe. Then also Greg will be talking about the program that they have for pots with Garden City Plastics. So what we wanted to do first of all is to talk about why we're actually here and how this project emerged and who is really funding and pushing this project. So RMCG is an organisation focused on agricultural and sustainability issues. We have been working with New South Wales Government and AgriFutures to look at reduction in single-use plastics and chemicals in the New South Wales cut flower industry. This project was funded through the New South Wales Storm and Flood Industry Recovery Program and also supported through AgriFutures. So why the focus on plastics? I guess we really wanted to make sure that we could ensure that we have a more resilient and sustainable flower industry. We've been working very closely with Flower Growers Group New South Wales, Wildflowers Australia, a Sustainable Forestry Network, and also Protected Cropping Australia. And so those organisations are really the pathway that we have to the growers. We're very focused on supporting the growers to protect the environment and also to create a safer product for florists and consumers. As I mentioned, the 2 key focus areas have been chemicals and plastics, and these next 3 webinars are about plastics. We have done a lot of on-farm workshops around chemical use and also looking at integrated pest and disease management. So as we know, plastics can end up in waterways. There's also pathways where we get plastics in the soil and moving into microplastics. And so they're a concern for a number of farmers and users, and we really want to have sustainable ways of managing plastics. We need to think about how can we reduce our reliance on plastics. Plastics are a really good product, and so we're not saying that we're going to get rid of plastics. It's really just thinking about are there alternatives, and if there aren't, how do we make sure that we have end-of-life solutions such as reuse and recycling. So the 2 programs that we're talking about today are very much focused on the recycling end. As I said, we've developed some resources, fact sheets that are available on our website, and also this 3-part webinar. Next program we'll be talking about seed, fertiliser bags and greenhouse skins. And then the last webinar will be looking at that problem plastic sleeves, which are used very much throughout the supply chain in the industry and have some challenges as to what the alternatives might be. When we first started doing this work, we've done quite a bit of waste work, and we've always really focused on the waste hierarchy. So how can growers move up the waste hierarchy is the focus that we've always considered in the agricultural sector. So these, hopefully most of you are familiar with the hierarchy, where we're looking to avoid, reduce, reuse, recycle, recover and dispose. As you go down the hierarchy, that's the less desirable option for us to take. And where we're probably working in the cut flower industry is that there's actually a really good reuse culture. So often plastics are reused, and we also do have some really great recycling programs. It's perhaps just that not everyone's familiar or aware of them. In the long term, you know, it's great if we could look at reducing and avoiding plastics where that's possible. So we did a bit of an assessment for the cut flower industry, and we determined that there were a number of plastics where we could look at options. The top priorities were the pots and propagation trays, which is why we've got Greg here, crates, irrigation piping, plastic flower sleeves and chemical containers, which is why we've got David here. So there's a lot of other plastics that are used in the industry, and it's really just thinking about each individual plastic as to what alternatives or what end-of-life solutions we need to be thinking about. Okay, so Ali, I think, this is just some of the resources on our website where you can find fact sheets on recycling options, drumMUSTER, also the Garden City Plastics program. So there's a number of resources there that people can access. In addition, we've got some podcasts and videos that have been done for the integrated pest and disease management side of things.
Thanks,
so with that, Ellie, we might move to David, who's going to talk to us about, in particular, the Agsafe stewardship programs. So drumMUSTER, but also ChemClear and the emerging bagMUSTER.
we're just gonna swap over with the slides. So I'll stop sharing for a second, and then David, you will be good to go. You just have to unmute yourself as well, David.
Rookie mistake there. Thank you, Anne-Maree and Ellie, for inviting me along today, and welcome to everyone. Agsafe is perhaps a little bit more diverse than just drums. So, Anne-Maree, when we go through my presentation, I'll talk about ChemClear, drumMUSTER, bagMUSTER as well. So, Agsafe's a wholly owned subsidiary of CropLife Australia, and approximately 30 years ago, it was initiated as a stewardship program to ensure that the chemical industry had certain spots along the supply chain where the chemical handling can be trained, and making sure that companies that are selling ag chemicals understand what they've got in their warehouses. Also that the manufacturing industry can train their staff on things like chemical exposure and the correct PPE they should be using. And of course, we're involved with container management and the disposal of obsolete chemical stocks as well. So there's 17 of us in the head office in Canberra, and we've got 15 people around the country that help us deliver the programs. So the three main stewardship programs talking about today is ChemClear, which is the disposal of unwanted or obsolete chemicals. In New South Wales, the next ChemClear run is proposed for mid to late 2026. And if anybody is interested in disposing of unwanted chemicals, they can go to our Agsafe website and register for the newsletter, which will update them on when the next chemical run is happening. A little bit more in a couple of slides down the track, we'll talk about Group 1 and Group 2 chemicals and how they fit into that ChemClear run. Of course, drumMUSTER's been around for 26 years. It's recycling of the HDPE plastic containers from as little as a 1 litre container right through to 220 litres. We've got 700 collection sites at council waste transfer stations or landfills, plus there's a number of on-farm pickups we do. And we also involve AgVet retailers as drumMUSTER and soon to be bagMUSTER sites. And within the area, I think of people we're talking to, say Agsafe in Windsor is a drumMUSTER site that'll soon become a bagMUSTER site as well. So bagMUSTER is about removing single-use plastic. Anne-Maree was talking about reuse. Unfortunately, the polypropylene bags that are in agriculture are single use. So we're about cleaning up the bulk of bags and the smaller 20, 25 kilo bags that may contain seed or fertilizer, and collecting them at the same spots that we collect drums and taking them to various recyclers around the country so they get another life. So with ChemClear, just briefly, it's collected over 1 million litres or kilos of obsolete chemicals. We tend to run a 2-year milk run scenario where people who have got unwanted chemicals can register them, and then they'll be added into a run to have them come to a collection site. 98% of the chemicals are repurposed, and 2% that require specialist treatment, that would be the very nasty ones, go through a plasma arc technology, and there's something like 300 degrees Celsius plasma sent at those chemicals, and it basically just destroys them. Around the country, this is the historical information about where the number of litres of chemical that have been collected in New South Wales, getting close to 250,000 litres. And I guess the important part of the program is understanding what Group 1 and Group 2 chemicals are. And Group 1 chemicals are funded within the drumMUSTER program. So the fees that we collect from the chemical companies to run the drumMUSTER program also fund the collection of the Group 1 chemicals, which they must be in the original container and labels intact. They must be part of the drumMUSTER program. They're either registered or deregistered within the last 2 years. And we're not taking surplus stock from AgVet chemical retail stores. They have their own process of getting the chemicals back to the manufacturer. So ChemClear is essentially for end users or people that buy chemicals for commercial processes. So the Group 2 chemicals, which is a fee-based collection, would be chemicals that are deregistered for more than 2 years. You can't identify them by the label. They're not part of the drumMUSTER program, and they may be, and this would be very dangerous if they were, a container containing mixed AgVet chemicals. Those, we find what the chemicals are when someone registers, and you get a quote on what it would cost to remove those chemicals. Moving on to drumMUSTER, as you can see by the map there, we've got collection sites all around Australia, and you know, covering the agricultural areas wherever they are. We try and have a collection site covering 80% of the country and within 20 kilometres of so farmers within 20 kilometres of their nearest drumMUSTER collection point. It's funded by a single source of revenue, that's the chemical manufacturers, who declare their sales to us every 3 months, the number of litres of chemicals that they sell. We then invoice them the fee and use that money to run the program, which includes infrastructure at sites, the collection and transport logistics, any gate fees that we might have to pay at recyclers, and promotion and education of the program, which the triple rinsing of chemical drums is something that we need to reinforce regularly, making sure that a chemical container that comes to a drumMUSTER collection site has been rinsed. Every drum is inspected. We train the staff at collection sites on their duty of care, PPE, what to look for within a chemical drum, and if it doesn't meet the cleanliness standards, the drums will be rejected. In the last couple of years, the program went from a regulated levy to a fee for service, and happily, in the last couple of years, the participation by the chemical industry, the ag chemical industry, has increased by just over 10%. If you're looking to take drums to a collection site, the simple advice is to triple rinse the containers to remove any residue, remove the lids, let the containers dry. You can find your nearest collection site on our drumMUSTER website, taking clean, eligible containers to that site. As I said, the containers are inspected before they get picked up and processed for recycling. And, you know, we're always happy for people to share the word of what drumMUSTER is all about. And if your customers are looking at how to dispose of chemical containers, please let them know about drumMUSTER. As I said, there's Agsafe in winter, which is within this Sydney basin, plus there's a location in Parramatta. We've got T&W Greenhouse, and then down in the south, Agsafe in Campbelltown. If there is a large amount of drums at a place, and we're talking about 1,500 plus, we can arrange a pickup, whether it's what we call on farm or at a business. Within Sydney, there'll be several golf courses that we'll go and see because they've got large amount of chemical containers. But essentially for, you know, 1 or 2, 5, 10, 20 containers, we need them to go to the collection site. Just looking at our performance, in excess of 45 million containers collected since the first collection was in Gunnedah in 1999. There's 45 million drums collected. This financial year just ended was our best collection rate ever, with that 65%. So that means that we've got 35% of drums still being either burnt or buried on farms, perhaps ending up in a landfill, or even, which could be tricky, being repurposed into other situations. So we're still working hard to lift those collection rates and set ourselves a target of 65% this financial year, but realistically hoping to stretch that to 70%. There will be some government legislation that will come in across the country by 2030, where brands are required to have a pathway for their packaging, and looking that there's a recycling rate of 80% for plastic packaging. We continue the messaging on the triple rinsing of containers to make sure that the compliance levels are as close to 100% as we can get. And we have mandatory training for AgChem licenses and purchase permissions. A couple of years ago, we did have an issue with the price of HDPE plastic was quite low, and our drumMUSTER container collection sites were filling up. We had about 2.5 million drums out in the field waiting to be picked up, and some processors were reluctant to collect them because the cost wasn't, the financial benefit wasn't there. In that same period, the PAC group were working on a way of getting recycled content into new chemical drums, which is pretty tricky considering the number of tests that they have to go through to meet the Australian dangerous goods for transport legislation. So many tests were done, and the it include drop tests from 1.8 meters on all corners of the drums and the sides. They freeze the drums to -18 with water inside to do advanced shelf life testing. And now happily that this system has been worked out, and they've made sample drums, and within the next 12 months we'll be able to go commercial on that. And the reason I mentioned the stockpiles of drums early, that the fact that Pact can put recycled content back into new drums opens up a huge new market for them and the chemical companies that will need to show that they've got recycled content in their chemical drums within the future. So that turns the value of the HDPE plastic around from manageable to sustainable, which is part of what we need to make sure that all of our stewardship programs are sustainable, so we can guarantee that we can offer service in years to come. I think I've touched on most of those, but looking at the image, the clever people at Pact in their blow mold process actually have virgin polymer on the inside skin and the outside skin, and the recycled content is in the middle. So it gives the container that capability to store the chemicals safely and use the recycled content. You'll be able to notice the new containers when they come out, because they won't be white, they'll be various stages of grey, almost to black, because the recycled content, it doesn't come out white, and when it's added to the virgin you get a little bit of white process in there, but it'll essentially be a different colour and easy to spot. Moving on to bagMUSTER. It's an initiative from CropLife Australia and the Australian Seed Federation. As I said, we're focusing on woven polypropylene bags, anything from a bulker bag down to your typical 20-25 kilo product bag that may contain fertilizer, seed, animal food. Again, it's going to be a program helpful to the brands, because they will need to show that they're being responsible for their collection and treatment of the waste packaging. The model differs slightly from drumMUSTER for the funding, where drumMUSTER is supported by the chemical companies themselves. The bag industry is so diverse, we found that the point of least pain to take the funding was from at the AgVet retailers. So any participating retailer of bagMUSTER, which includes Elders, Nutrien, the Mewers Group, and a number of independents that are on board at the moment, and the list is growing every week. They supply details of the bags that they've sold within the area, and every 3 months we invoice them the fee and use that money to run the program. We kicked off bagMUSTER in Western Victoria purely because the recycling avenues we have are in Melbourne or Geelong. Those know the problems that RedCycle had. They collected, hundreds of thousands of tons of plastic and had nowhere to have it recycled. So it sat in 44 warehouses around the country, rotting away. There's been a lot of good work to fix those problems, but we were very conscious of not wanting to be a RedCycle, so we're basing our rollout on the availability of the recycling to make sure that every bag that we collect has a recycler to go to. And places like GT Recycling in Geelong collecting bags from collection sites within that footprint and recycling them into things like void formers, and the resin will go off to make little feet that hold up the Rio in a concrete slab. Our plans are to fill up the rest of Victoria this financial year, kick off Tasmania sometime next year. We're working in New South Wales with an additive to the program where we're joining forces with the New South Wales EPA, who have a funding mechanism called bin trim, where businesses can apply for funding up to $50,000 for equipment that will help them reduce landfill. And in a lot of the cases, we're working with councils or brand owners to organise balers to be on site, so that any of the bags that we collect can be baled, and that makes the transportation much more easier because loose bags are a problem on trucks. So if we're looking at New South Wales, I would think that there will be some sites open in 2026, but the major rollout for bagMUSTER will be late 2026 and perhaps even early 2027. Like drumMUSTER, we wanted to be very close to the offtake of the plastic and making sure that we had a sustainable program. So we've got a bags to bags program at the moment with 4 companies, including us, a bag wholesaler, a recycler, and a manufacturer of polypropylene bags in India. 100% of woven polypropylene bags are made overseas, whether it's India, China, or Southeast Asia. So to make that program circular, we need a relationship with a company overseas, and in this case, we've got a bag manufacturer in Bangalore in India, who has 10 tonnes of recycled polypropylene bulk bags and small seed bags. And this week they've started testing making the tape required for the polypropylene. They'll be doing various blends, 25%, 50%, 75%, and 90% recycled content matched with virgin. Early next year, those sample bags will come back to us to start to show the seed, crop protection, and the chemical industry what we can offer them. If they ever pop up on your doorstep again, they'll be easy to spot because they'll be grey through to black. Eventually, the days of a white bag will only be virgin polypropylene. Any content with recycled is going to have an off colour. Something that we're very excited about, that it will make the program very robust, and it will involve and lock in companies that need to show they've got recycled content in their bags. Our partners in India are very excited to it because they don't have a bagMUSTER program in India, so they need to get recycled polypropylene from somewhere so they can offer a recycled content bag. You may see some bulker bags at the moment that are talking about 30% recycled content. That today, that would be a bag that's made of virgin polypropylene and factory offcuts from within the factory that they reclaim and regrind and put back into new bags. So, hope I did well for time, and thanks very much.
Great, thanks, David. And I would encourage everyone to go to the Agsafe website, because you can find out where any drumMUSTER collection points are, and it's very easy to find out when they're open and who would be taking you those drums. So we might move on now to Greg from Garden City Plastics, who's going to talk about the pot recycling program. Thanks, Greg.
Greg, you're on mute as well. So just go and unmute yourself and then start again.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I should learn how to read, shouldn't I? Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ali and Anne-Maree, for inviting me today. We'll go through and have a bit of a run through with this as well. Applaud David on what you're doing, David, with the drumMUSTER and the PP5. There's been a lot of work in the background with the bulker bags, as you know, David, and just for the mob. The stitching's PP5, the outer's PP5, so the whole bag is recyclable, and that's what recycling is all about, is clarity of material. And when David talks about the drums, they're a HDPE, which is number 2, and the woven bags are a number 5, so they can't be collected together, even though you think it'd be good to have the same collection point. And it'd be easy for everybody. It doesn't quite work that way. But anyway, my name's Greg Carrick. I manage Victoria, Tassie and New Zealand for Garden City Plastics, which is a national injection moulding company. We manufacture majority polypropylene, PP5, and we manufacture around about 15,000 tonne of material per annum. And we've started up a recycling scheme, a recycling program. We call it, we're not a stewardship program. We're not registered as stewardship in that regard. We fund this totally ourselves, and we started that around about 2000 and 2021. I'll give you a little bit of a brief overview of Garden City and the recycling and why the PP5 and the clarity component is all important. Garden City began manufacturing in 1975 in a small shed almost, or in Heatherton. And the owner of the business, and we're still a family business, we've got over 300 employees at the moment, and around every state virtually. The owners of the business were nursery people, and they were growing plants for Coles and Fossies and Woolworths and Big W years and years ago in the 70s, and there was less of a good supply of plastic plant containers. So the owner of the business, Len Wilson, decided, if I can't get some good pots to pot my plants up with, I'll make my own tool and mould. So he bought his own tool. He went to a friend of his who had a moulding shop in Moorabbin, and would grow plants through the day and pot plants with the nursery. And then after hours, he would go and mould pots off and put them into boxes and bring them back for the staff in the morning, and they would pot them up, and he would do this continually. Some other people liked the pots that Len had, and said, Len, can I buy some of your pots? So he started selling the pots, and then he made another mould and another mould, and it evolved into what you see today. We would have in excess of 250 different moulds of different pot sizes, which has evolved over the 50 years of Garden City. As I said, we started off in a small factory in Heatherton. We moved to the Monbulk Jam factory in 1992, and in 2006 we outgrew that through the early 2000s, or the mid 2000s there, 2010 or so. And in 2016, we moved into the former GMH plant in Dandenong. So we've now got 600,000 square feet, I should say, of warehouse space where we have 90 moulding machines moulding plastic flower pots. We mould decor food containers. We mould other reinforcing products. David talked about some reinforcing product that was made. We mould a pod for ARC in conjunction with another bag recycling scheme that's in place as well. So where you may build a concrete slab with foam pods in the ground, they will switch over in time to polypropylene pods, as they can be recycled themselves. And the recycling program, which I'll get onto now, we started up in around about middle of 2021. So our recycling program is in part the PP5 partnership between, as you can see, Garden City Plastics, Norwood Industry and Polymer Processors. Polymer Processors are the recycling plant that we use. All the material collected around Australia, except for Brisbane, that we collect, ends up back at Polymer Processors. They clean the material, shred the material, clean the material, turn it back into polymer beads, and then we buy it back from Polymer Processors and make some more plastic flower pots. Next slide, Ellie. Thank you. You're ahead of me on that one. This is just one of the cages. What is PP5? It's a cracked form of petroleum. It's called polypropylene, and it's very specific. And as David spoke before, every plastic has a number, and the number is critical because it talks about the melt flow and what it can be used for, its rigidity and its hardness and things like that. So PP5 is what we mould for the horticultural industry. Every black flower pot you buy, or flower bucket, or the seedling trays you can see in the crate there, the green tubes in the bottom right hand corner of the crate, they're all made from PP5. Generally, coloured material is virgin material, and the black material is made from recycled material. Next slide, Ellie, please. This program is extended out through to retail and wholesale nurseries. Landscape industry have been very, very supportive through the Plant Mark Group. They've been fantastic. And through flower farms. And we deal with quite a few flower farms directly. If you have a flower farm, we generally what's the best way to say it? We confine a little bit to metro areas. So you're best to contact your local garden city or get on the PP5 website, which will come up later. And you can put in a request for one of the cages. We don't charge for the cages. We don't charge for the collection. This is a scheme that we see the PP5 and David touched on plastics before, and as did Anne-Maree. Plastics have got a little bit of a bad name. The red cycle scheme was, they had everything evolved in what they were doing except where to sell the product to for another person to use it in a suitable way. And that was, we've started the other way with this program where we've got the use for it. We just haven't got, we're just looking to get as many recycle points as we can. So as we say there, the retail nurseries have been terrific with us. We would collect well over 80% or probably 80% of what we do from wholesale growers, about 30 or 15% from the landscape industry, and the other 5% or so would be from flower farms and retail garden centres. The polypropylene in the black containers is not visible through scanners through your domestic recycle system. So a coloured pot, we can almost guarantee will. We don't say it does because we're unsure of every council's transfer station system, but really a coloured pot. And that's why your ice cream containers are blue. They're polypropylene. Why your takeaway food containers are coloured, your margarine containers and butter containers are a white or a yellow colour, is that they can be seen by the scanners at the transfer stations. But unfortunately, at the moment, black pots are unable to be seen there. So the retail industry, we would like to collect a lot more through the retail industry, but we don't at the moment because the black can't go into domestic recycled containers. Next slide. Thank you, Ellie. Yes, and other people that we collect from as well, protected cropping growers, which is a growing side of what we're dealing with now with blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, tomatoes are all being grown out of ground. So they're generally grown in some sort of plastic container, whether it be a bag or a plastic container in that regard. Vegetable farmers, we supply recycled propagation trays, which again, Anne-Maree touched on before, and flower markets. We'd love to get more, and I'm happy to talk to anybody out there at a flower market about setting up recycling cages in some of the flower markets, because the flower growers are all going there. It's a way of getting density material and again clarity material as all the growers are going there at that point as well. Next slide, Ellie. Thank you. As we said, this program started in May 2021, collected around about 4 tonne in May 22. It went up a little, went up quite a lot actually with that. 23, you can see there was around about 65 tonne. I've just really plucked out May because that was our starting little line we did there to show you the increases. May 24, a little bit down there, but other months were up. In the year 20, just for example, in the financial year 24, 25, we collected around about 700 tonne of plastic flower pots nationally, and that included Perth, Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. Brisbane are now working with a recycler up there, and they recycled it back into polymer beads. And again, we buy that back off that recycler. They come direct to our manufacturing plant here in Dandenong, and we turn those back into plastic flower pots and collection trays. But all the other states send it back to polymer processors in Braeside. And we'd love to see us get 100 tonne a month or more as a future. It's really a matter of people putting their hand up, and we're happy to talk to anybody about supporting them with a recycling cage. As we said, clarity and density are the key to this, and working directly with the growers, they understand that, and everybody these days is pretty organised with what they do. And we'd love to talk to more people in the floristry industry about collecting their flower buckets, broken and used flower buckets. Next slide, Ellie. The cage system, it's really simple. We call it the recycle cycle. We manufacture at the top there. We deliver. The plants are potted or grown. From there, they're sold. They're planted out, and whether it be a landscaper or a retail nursery, or between business to business with nurseries selling to other nurseries who would grow that plant on. The plants are dropped to a recycle centre, or they're collected by Garden City Plastics, and then we funnel that back to polymer processors who ultimately reprocess it, where we purchase it back and it starts to manufacture again. We can guarantee that every pot we collect, which sounds a big statement and we don't use it lightly, but we can guarantee every pot and plastic container we collect and nursery industry tray will end up back as a polymer bead here, which we will turn back into another horticultural product. So it is truly a 100% circular system. Next slide. Thanks, Sally. And as we said, one in, all in. We'd use the term everybody at every level needs to be a partner in this. We can't do this with our collection separate from anybody else helping us out. So the nursery industry and the flower industry move product around. When it's moved around, it gets to an end user. When that end user's finished using it, that's where you get the clarity. So as long as they're stacking it up, and as David mentioned before with his HDPE drums, we can't recycle HDPE. We are purely PP5. Virtually every pot, carry tray, seedling tray, nursery industry punnet will have a number on it, and nearly every product will have a number on it. For example, just an aside quickly, we also deal with the decathlon stores. If you ever bought a pair of runners or an outdoor jacket at a decathlon store, we collect the coat hangers from Decathlon, and they are PP5. So there's a lot of other PP5 out there, and just another example of PP5 in your car. The bumper bar would be PP5, the dashboard would be PP5, the mirrors on the side would be made from PP5. So there's a lot of polypropylene out there, which we collect in other forms from other recycling facilities, obviously, to make up the difference between what we're collecting. But yeah, the clarity is key. The density is key. Our system that we have with the nurseries and the flower growers and the retailers is a check. So you check that it's number 5, you tap the excess media out of it, and then you stack them together to get that density of material. And as I said, we don't charge for this. We have a truck that runs around, which was in one of the previous slides, in Melbourne. In other states, they collect it on their general delivery trucks, but we have a dedicated truck in Melbourne collecting these. And yeah, we go forward from there. So, but as I said, density is the key. So everybody needs to help in keeping the cages as full as they can, with as much material as they can, that keeps it as efficient as it can for us to collect it, to get it back to the recycler. So, and as I said, we turn it there into a circular economy. I'll just touch quickly, which I haven't got a slide for. Well, thank you, Ellie. With Garden City Plastics, and that's the website pp5.com.au. I think Anne-Maree said they'll send around some information after this, where you can contact me, and please send an email, or you can call me, but an email's probably easier. And just happy to chat to you about the cages, where your location is, and how we can help. There is another plastic in this industry called PS6, and PS6 is polystyrene, which if you propagate or you plant out of a plug tray, that is PS6. We also collect PS6, but in a different format. It's not in a reg cage format. And I didn't really want to go into it too much here, but that is another plastic within the industry that we manufacture polystyrene plug trays. They can't be made out of polypropylene. We've tried. They just can't, because the difference in the material, which hence why we collect them in a separate recycle scheme. But if anyone calls, I can explain how we do those. It's up on the Garden City website, how we collect those as well. So it gives you a bit of an overview. As I said, thank you everybody for asking me to be on today. The pp5.com.au website shows you how it's recycled, and there's a sustainability page on the Garden City Plastics.com website that'll explain that as well. So
thanks very much, Greg. There is a question for you, Greg. Is there a recycling point in Coffs Harbour?
Coffs Harbour, I would say, is probably regional, which I don't think so. I'd probably head to the pp5.com.au website and pop in an email there, which will end up getting back to me anyway, and or email me direct, and I can assess and find out where that is from there. There is a distance thing. As I said, we don't charge for the collection for the cages and the recycling, but the distance, the regional areas, we'd love to work. If anybody knows any trying to think of the word for the social enterprise groups in regional areas, we'd love to chat to some of those people about collecting the material and helping again, maybe get an income stream for them, but have those regional areas covered with some social.
And I guess there's a number of people online who are familiar with Sydney markets, and there is a collection site there. Is there anything, any other sites around the Sydney markets, or again, you just need to give that contact?
I'm mainly based in Melbourne, Anne-Maree, so the Sydney site's probably a little bit out of my realm of knowing every specific location, but get on the pp5.com website and look up the locations. Bunnings have been good. All the plant marks have been fantastic. If you've got little bits over time, the plant marks have been a fantastic supporter for us, and they'll happily accept material there. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, Greg. I might open it up for some questions of David and Greg. I know that there's a few people from Wildflowers Australia. Just interested, either Ben or Elizabeth, if you know of your growers that are using ChemClear or drumMUSTER, or have you ran into problems with the use of those schemes?
If you write something in the chat, Ben or Elizabeth, I can then indicate to unmute you if you would like to speak.
I'm sure Ben would like to speak.
I might just go ahead, Ben, and I'll send, hopefully you can talk in a second.
Over to Ben, says Elizabeth. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of our members would know about drumMUSTER and ChemClear. We sent out information, I think, before about those programs. So it's up to individual members, I guess, to
that's right.
manage their drums and use those programs.
The website is very easy to use, so just need to encourage people to go to the Agsafe website.
We might share that the QR code that was up earlier to take them to that.
Sure. We can send that out afterwards.
I think I took a photo of it. So
yeah. Okay. David, you also mentioned about the 30% recycled content for the drums. I think drums to drums, and is that, what's your target with that? Are you hoping to go higher than the 30%, or do you think that's about the limit?
It could, but Pact Group wanted to try. They've got to work out the volumes that we can supply and what goes in, and they were concerned that if they made 100% recycled drums, that they may not be able to meet the market demands and have to turn off. So 30% is a manageable amount from what we can supply through the drumMUSTER program. So that's how that figure was picked.
Okay, so it could go up, but at the moment that's a reasonable rate.
Yeah, it's just balancing the supply of the recycled HDPE, the availability of it, and also the customer demand.
I guess one of the things that we're watching is if there was legislation that required a recycled content, it could completely change the game, I guess. It's something that we would look to as a bit of a way to encourage the recycling rate of current plastics. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think there's going to have to be some wiggle room in that because, for example, if you're using polypropylene bags for flour, the food grade quality bags will always need to be virgin. So not necessarily every bag that could have recycled content is practical for every industry. So if within the chemical industry, if the availability of the recycled content is limited, well, perhaps that will be the amount that needs to be negotiated on recycled content.
Sure. Yeah. If there's any other questions, if you just put them into the chat and David or Greg can answer them. I guess the other question or comment that, Greg, you emphasised is that, we've got different types of plastics, so that the drums are HDPE, number 2, and what you're dealing with is polypropylene. So I just wonder, what are your biggest issues? I mean, first of all, we need to make sure that we're not mixing those different types of plastics, but what other issues are you having with contamination? Maybe I'll ask Greg first, and David, because your products get checked, perhaps you have less of an issue with contamination. So, Greg, do you have any issues with contamination?
No, very little. Funny enough, probably the retail side, we've probably hesitated putting recycled cages in semi-public spaces because they will get used as a rubbish dump site. So we tend to work behind the scenes with the retail nurseries and the plant marks. We hear pretty soon from polymer processors if there's any contamination with another plastic in there of some sort. But on the whole, no, very, very good. And we bang on about all the time, just clarity and density, and we say a few times there. But that once people get that in their head, and as I said, we don't charge for this, so we need everybody to be involved and everybody be on the same page. So overall, no, very, very clean feed stream.
Okay,
yes.
And David?
Yeah, look, both bagMUSTER and drumMUSTER are going to be dealing with agvet chemicals, Schedule 5, 6 or 7 poisons, in glyphosate, or in some cases paraquat. It's a pretty nasty chemical, so we need to make sure that the drums, that education on triple rinsing is continuous. And within the bag side of things, again, bags are inspected so there's not excess contamination, whether it's large clumps of fertilizer, which can affect the water treatment within the recycling process too. That they have ways of decontaminating the water, but if there's too excess contamination in there, that causes them problems. But even perhaps things like a piece of fencing wire in a bulk bag would be a disaster going through a shredder. So every bag, every drum will be inspected. We pay the councils to do that on behalf of Agsafe programs.
Yeah. So I knew you did the drums, so that you would be doing the same with the bags.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Ben has a question. He said, I feel like there's a lot of old drums out there that don't meet the standards for drumMUSTER. So ones that weren't part of the program or no longer have labels intact. So I think he's had a 2-year time frame, was it, David? What's your...
That's with ChemClear, that
okay.
chemical cleanup for the chemicals that are 2 years past the registration, that they fall into the group 2. But if there is a drum with a drumMUSTER logo on it, it doesn't matter how old the drum, it's still part of the program.
Okay, so does that answer your question, Ben? Hopefully it does. Any other questions? We might, we've got 5 minutes to go, but we might finish just a little bit early. I guess the key messages really are that what Greg says he bangs on about is clarity and density. So making sure you really are familiar with the type of plastic that you're dealing with, and also making sure that you have minimal contamination for that plastic. This is really an opportunity to start the conversation. So you've been introduced to David and Greg. I guess we can keep talking to both Agsafe and Garden City Plastics to ensure that we have some solutions for New South Wales cut flower growers, and to make sure that, you know, plastics that are on farm can be recycled. Ben's just asked, what about chemical drums that don't have the drumMUSTER logo?
They fall into the Group 2 collection process, and there needs to be a quote on what the cost to recover those chemicals would be.
What about the actual drums?
Oh, okay. So, look, we have a thing called free riders, a term we use, and I'm sure that a clean chemical drum that comes to a landfill site will probably go through. We've tried to work with the councils to find out those brands that aren't part of the program and talk to them about joining. There's about 140 chemical companies involved with drumMUSTER. When I started in Agsafe a few years ago, there was just over 100. So the number of participants is growing. So if we identify a brand at a cage that's not part of the program, we encourage them to join.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, David and Greg, for a very informative session. And I guess for people that have participated, you can contact both Greg and David. We'll send out the recording of the webinar, but also details for you to get in touch. And as I said, this is really just to start the conversation and make sure that we can look at options for recycling some of the problem plastics. So thanks, everyone.